Let me set this up by the way I learned about you, Chris. And to any listeners of the Nonfiction Brand podcast, one of the things I like to do is curate stuff for you guys so that you can hook up with smart people. And I happen to be listening to a podcast that is all about one of my big interests, which is as I reboot my speaking business post-COVID, I'm looking at Speaker Flow as a potential customer relationship marketing software system for my speaking business. And they have a great podcast called Technically Speaking, which if you are a professional speaker or I would like to be a professional speaker, I couldn't recommend that more highly because they get on great people talking about all sorts of things. Well, I heard an episode with Chris here and I'm like, oh my God, are we twins? Are you a brother from another mother that I know nothing about? Because you were talking about getting out there and telling your authentic story, but with a marketing lens on things. So much so that you were talking about, hey, you've got to have 3 things that you really stand for. And I forget what you called them, but here in the land of Nonfiction Brand, we all use the term key 3, the key 3 concepts, words, or phrases that completely sum up the who you are, what you do, and how you do it as a personal brand. And when I heard that, I'm like, dang, this guy is preaching to the choir. So I better have the preacher on my podcast. So with that nice intro, Chris West, welcome to the Nonfiction Brand podcast.
Hey, thanks, DP. It is such a joy to be with you. And yeah, I'm excited both for your and my conversation, but also for anybody who's thinking about building their personal at a deeper level. This is going to be a great conversation.
And the way this podcast focuses on stuff is, yeah, we want to know about you. We want to know about video narrative and all that stuff. But I like to get deeper and go, Chris West, why did you decide to niche down so tightly? You aren't just doing video. You aren't just doing promo videos. You're doing promo videos for a very, what most people would consider small niche, a micro niche of individuals who are looking to build their personal brands. And that is professional speakers. So I want to find out about that, but let's first dive into video narratives. Can you give us 30 seconds or so about what Video Narrative does as a company for professional speakers?
Absolutely. So every client that we work with has the same challenge. And that challenge is who they are in person as a speaker doesn't show up as well online. Maybe it's that their brand has gotten a lot better and deeper and their current website, their current video, it's like 2 to 3 years out. Or they're new into the industry and they are truly qualified, but they don't have the look, the feel, the clarity. So someone comes to their website or sees their video and says, yes, instantly put that on. So that's the challenge that every one of our people feel. They do not look online the way that they need to as good as they are in person. We build out the brand clarity, the websites, the video, so that they look as good as they are in person on video. And a lot of times people say, I'm actually now just trying to compete with my video. I hope I look that good when I'm in person, right? And once they do that, we build out the launch and the marketing plan so they're really successful in growing their speaking business.
I can already hear the wheels turning in some of my listeners' ears as they go, oh my God, you've touched on some of the things that I'm concerned about. Like, I'm better in person and I don't come across as strongly on social media or via websites, or my YouTube presence is very weak and I don't have the great video and I don't have a sizzle reel. I don't have an explainer video about what I do. And oh my God, I don't even know where to get started. And I know this much about you guys, that you are not a video production company. You are a video storytelling company, or you're a marketing storytelling company that happens to use video as the primary tool for a lot of what you do, but not all of what you do. And that's what intrigues me the most. And just to set this up in terms that Nonfiction Brand listeners would understand, a couple of our favorite guests who've been on 3-4 times, Jay Baer and Mark Schaefer, both have used your services to create the professional speaking reels that allow them to get $25,000 a speech or $45,000 a speech. And the reality is, if you're going to speak on a stage where the kind of entry level is $25,000, you got to earn that $25,000, that $45,000, that $50,000 way before you ever hit that stage. in the eyes of the people who book you, refer you, prefer you,
right,
and all that stuff. And that starts with really conveying the true story, or what we like to say here on the Nonfiction Brand podcast, the completely true, completely you story that people who know you closely know 100%. But if people are walking past you in a concourse at an airport, they know nothing about. And that's really, really intriguing with me. So let's just play out a scenario here, because I'm interested in this. You've got a speaker come to you and say, hey, Chris, I love what you're doing for the Mark Schaefer's and the Jay Bears of the world. I'm not quite there yet, maybe, but I would like to be. How would you start engaging with me to actually get me to that level of what I would consider professional speaking superstardom?
Yeah, so I'm going to not talk about our services in any relation. I'm going to just talk about what every speaker needs to be thinking about and what they write to get there, right? Most speakers and thought leaders, when they're building a speaking business, they hear you need a really good speaker video, you need a good website, and you need a good marketing plan or something like that. And I would tell you, nope, those are all secondary. The first thing that you need is the very first, what I call pillars, and there's 3 pillars. One is brand clarity, one is brand tools or brand assets or brand marketing tools, and the third is brand exposure. You got to get column 1 right, your brand clarity. And in order to get your brand clarity right, you need basically 5 components. Number 1, you need a very clear brand story. And this is what's so important. It is not the one you think it is. It's the one that is your audience, your character in the story, their biggest challenge, how you fit into it, right? The transformational model that you can give them, the results that they can expect. And that model, that story needs to be so clear that it defines your video and it defines your website. The second thing you need is you need distinction. It's a very saturated market now, and you need to be able to stand for something. And when we find someone's category of one, their distinction, it's like everyone begins to be know that for you. So you mentioned Jay Bear. What was really fun with Jay is that Jay speaks on something different every 2 years. And before that, he was having a challenge to ever describe it because it felt too confining. But we built a distinction called the right now with the TM behind it. And now every time Jay speaks, and his brand, what he stands for is there are a certain amount of levers that you can pull over the next 2 years that where you're going to have a competitive advantage among your peers. I'm going to teach you those. And every 2 years, I'm going to give you the most relevant way to do it. And it's called the right now. As soon as he described it in that way, it became far more clear for why people should have him back every 2 years and what his brand stands for, no matter what keynote they book him for. So that's distinction. Number 3, you have to have a transformational model. The brain will not listen or hear you or believe you unless you can walk them through a path. And what you're hearing me describe is my transformational model. We call it a change model. First this, then that, then this. And they're going, okay, got it, right? That's the third thing you need is a transformational model. Fourth is a very, very good signature keynote. A signature keynote should take someone on a journey. Far too many people think that if I get up there and speak for 60 minutes, it'll be great. No, you need to take a group of individuals, turn them into one collective group energy, and over 60 minutes, take them on a journey so that by the time they leave there, they can't be the same. And that signature keynote is vital. And then the 5th thing that you need is you need a really clear business model for how you're going to scale that company or that thing. So most people are like, I'm going to speak at 10,000 per keynotes, I'm going to do 20 of those. It's like, no, but what are you going to do before, during, after? Are there trainings? Are there workshops? We build out business models with people to be clear. When you have those 5 components of that first, what I call, column, it's brand story, distinction, change model, a signature keynote or deliveries, and then your business model. That's when you're ready to build your website. That's when you're ready to build your video. And because your video will now sell that, your website will now sell all that clarity. And when you're clear on that stuff, that's when you feel confident and you demand the right fees. Those are the 5 components you have to get right first.
All right. I got to break you down a little bit and bring out the highlighter for listeners. Do you see what Chris just did? He took a very complicated system and series of processes and talking about all sorts of various things and technology. And he didn't talk about sales funnels or anything like that. Instead, he broke it down into 5 steps that you had to be nodding your head as he went through each one going, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, I don't have to do everything. I have to do those 5 things as opposed to an entire universe of possibilities. And I always talk about being in praise of parameters. I love me some parameters because if anything's possible, nothing is. If there is no deadline, there is no project. Parameters are the things that provide focus for people. And what you've just described there are a set of 5 parameters that can work for anybody who's looking to build their personal brand, even if they're never going to hit a stage and do a keynote speech. You have to have a brand story. And that's one of the things we talk about here ad nauseum. And I'm just glad to hear someone else agree with me, but use different words to describe it. And you can see it. And one of the things I want to invite people to do is to go to videonarrative.com and check out their website, because again, it's very well staged out. It's not a bunch of blah, blah copy. It cuts to the chase and then provides links to proof points, one of which you can find on their very well-stocked Vimeo.com showcases, where you can see some of the best speaker reels I've ever seen. But it's not just about speakers. It's about all sorts of video that tells stories in slightly different ways, whether it's to excite you, whether it's to get you interested, etc. Check that out as well. And actually, I'll go to the one shot here and bring up the lower third just to say, check out Chris's work on Vimeo at vimeo.com/video narrative. Seriously, I go to Vimeo whenever anyone has showcases like this because it allows me to dive deep into what they do so I get what they're doing. Now, it's kind of funny. I'm talking to you today. This is, what is this? Wednesday, September 6th of 2023. On Monday, I'm talking at 9 o'clock with Jay Baer. He's going to be on the podcast again for the 4th time. And there's a reason why, because the guy is fantastic and he is smart as a whip and he's doing some really, really interesting things. The reason I bring him up is because you have to look at Jay's brand new sizzle reel or speaker reel, which I think was released maybe a month ago, if I got that right. As a creative director, I have to ask you about this. Let me set the scene for listeners. There's Jay. He's in a room with a wall full of vinyl records, in sleeves. He reaches up, he grabs one. He pulls the vinyl out of the record sleeve. I think it says time to win. The time to win or something like that. He puts that on a turntable. And then the turntable arm goes down and it starts playing and the video starts. And then there's a narrative device throughout the entire 5-minute, 6-minute piece where he's in a record store and vinyl records are kind of almost a character within the whole piece itself. And I'm going, God bless America. That is so fun because it breaks something down. And again, I don't know if Jay is a huge fan of vinyl. I don't know if he's got an audiophile sound system at home or whatever, but I'm getting the idea that, he's a connoisseur of analog in a digital age. So he's bringing the best of both. He's combining both. And maybe I'm reading too much into this, which is my want. But I have to say I was impressed because this was not the speaker reel that I've come to expect, which is guy on big stage, guy with a Countryman microphone looking like Garth Brooks at, the Hollywood Bowl or something, and all that stuff. I mean, yes, there are some shots of that, but the narrative device utilizing vinyl records on a turntable, that was a cool little character or personality insight. Who came up with that? Was that part of you and your group, or was that in concert with Jay, or how did that develop?
Well, I will tell you that one of the cool things about Jay is that he speaks about leadership as one of his topics. And Jay lived out what he teaches, where Jay has run and sold for marketing companies. So he knows marketing exceptionally well. He is a consultant for some of the biggest companies in the world. When he hired me, he said, "You are great at what you do. I'm not going to get in your way. Interview me and tell me what you think." And so as a leader, he encouraged me and my team to be completely creative and didn't say, "Here's how I think we should do this," even though I have a background in this, blah, blah, blah. And that idea like every one of our videos, comes from me studying the person and asking, what is the right story for this person? And so with Jay speaks about so many different things, and every 2 years it's different. And as I asked him about all the things he loves in his life, one of them for sure is tequila. Another one is music. And he's such a connoisseur of things. I thought, how could we possibly tell this in a way that someone would get it? And it was like, you know what? You never listen to just one album. You put on the right music for the right time to set the right mood. We could create a kind of brand for Jay where when you're looking for the right brand or the right topic for the right mood of your keynote, you could pick a different album on. And so I started researching spaces. I found a space in Portland that has it's called the Record Room. And it's a suite in a hotel that's got a whole wall of records. And we worked with a company that makes custom record labels. And I got all of Jay's keynotes built into record. We had our designer put them together. And it was a really fun thing because he came into Portland and showed up. The record room was ready. And then all of his keynotes are now vinyls. It was a great way to show the audience this is the way to see Jay, and to bring this very eclectic way of his world into something that feels clear and linear and accessible to an audience.
I got to tell you, I totally got it. And it was just so fun because the Jay that I know, having interviewed him multiple times and met him in person, most personable guy in the world, just really salt of the earth, really cool guy, with a very big sharer, all that stuff. It comes through beautifully throughout the entire piece. So that's some homework for listeners of the Nonfiction Brand. Go to vimeo.com/showcase 104-96892.
No, DP, just jbearvideo.com.
Okay, jbearvideo.com. There you go. And let me just say that. So, homework, Nonfiction Branders, go to, what was the URL, Chris?
jbearvideo.com.
And check out Jay Bear's video and see what you feel when you watch that video. I'm not going to tell you what you're going to feel, but I'm going to tell you what you're not going to feel. You're not going to feel like this guy is ultra slick or a shyster or a huckster. You're going to see a guy who kind of makes you think, that gets you excited. And I'll let you experience it the way you experience it, but put it this way. You're going to watch a promo reel that makes you feel something. That is not the standard when it comes to speaker reels in in the world. Many of them are just kind of like, are you really that big a narcissist? Or are you really that plastic and programmed? Or you got to be kidding me, dude. I get none of that feeling from any of the videos that I've seen you guys do. So congratulations on that. We're coming toward the end of this episode, but that's okay because Chris is going to be back next week and we're going to talk more about how he got into this field of endeavor, because you didn't start out to be a cinematographer or a director of photography or a video guy at all, right?
No, sir.
That's an interesting story right there, and I want to learn more about that. But for now, I want to remind everybody that the Nonfiction Brand podcast is brought to you by, of course, the book, Nonfiction Brand, Discover, Craft, and Communicate the Completely True, Completely You brand you already are, which is available over at the house of Jeff Bezos, Amazon.com. Just search for Nonfiction Brand and the word Knudten, which is spelled K-N-U-D as in David, T as in Tom, E as in Edward, N as in nothing. And you'll be able to find the book there. I hope you'll pick up a copy and let me know what you think. That's it for this week on the Nonfiction Brand podcast. I am, as always, your host, DP Knudten, and he is
Chris Wax.
And we'll be talking at you again next week. Bye-bye.